After smoking my headlights and making the rear of the car more aggressive, the SE bumper just wasn't doing it for me. Besides, SE stands for Senior Edition, right? Well, in this video, I bought an S-Line bumper from eBay and decided to have a go spraying it myself with Rattle cans, instead of giving it to a body shop. So, here's my work log. The bumper was in mostly good condition, with an intact grille and fog light surrounds. There was damage however at the near side bottom, where it looked like it had hit a low curb. I just want to point out at this stage that this is a work log more so than a tutorial. If mistakes are made or things aren't 100% clear, please understand this is just a video of how I got on. I am by no means a professional painter. After separating the grille, logically I gave the bumper a hose down to see what damage I was fully faced with. Right, before I start painting the bumper, I need to just take care of this repair down here, where this bumper's obviously hit something like a low curb. Now on top of it, it's not too bad, it's just caused a slight dent, so I think this will pop out with a bit of heat. Down below there's a bit more damage, and you can see it's actually, rather than being pushed in, it's actually come out. So we need to try and push this back in, and probably going to have to use a little bit of filler on here, just to then smooth it all back and keep it nice and smooth. The thing is, with this being on the bottom of the bumper, this part is not as vital that this is perfect, so I actually just want to get the top bit perfect, because that's going to be visible at all times when viewing the car from a close-up angle. I turned my heat gun up a few hundred degrees to make the plastic extremely soft. This allowed me to manipulate the shape of the plastic and push the bulge in so I could apply body filler over it later. And after using the heat gun, checked out, the dent is much better. In fact, I'd say it's pretty much 100% gone on the top. It looks completely uniform going down. You can see the light reflecting on it now. It's actually very consistent to the light. There's maybe a slight indent here. The front of the bumper though, that looks a lot better as well. There's no sharp edges coming out. I know the paintwork's ruined, that's obviously to be expected. And the bumper now just looks a lot more solid, and the corner definitely has the shape back to it. Quickly, before I move on to the rest of the bumper, I'll quickly walk you through the grille. I started by separating the chrome bezel, number plate surround and badges. The badge was fairly easy to polish up with a microfiber cloth and some body polish. With the bezel, I wanted to make it black since I liked the black effect I already had going on with my car. I sanded down the surface with 240 grit sandpaper and applied filler primer and then plastic primer, with 3 coats of each, leaving 10 minutes between each coat. 30 minutes later, I lightly sanded the primer back with 400 grit to smooth it out, and sprayed matte black spray paint over it, again with 3 coats. Finally, I hit it with some clear coat, applying about 5 to 6 coats. I did the same for the number plate surround, and then later smoothed the clear coat down with 1500 grit sandpaper before polishing. Moving on to the bumper, I sanded the entire surface with 240 grit sandpaper. I paid particular attention to the areas that would be most visible, and also to the damage on the bottom. Then it was time to take care of the damage. I got some plastic body filler, which is more flexible than normal filler, and proceeded to mix the recommended ratio of filler to hardener. Then I applied it to the bumper, making sure to squeeze it into the damage. I probably applied a little bit too much filler, but it's not the end of the world. I also applied a bit of filler to some of the heavier chips on the front of the bumper too. After letting it set, I sanded it back with 240 grit sandpaper and made sure to use a sanding block so I could keep it as level as possible with the rest of the bumper. Once completely smoothed out, it was time to clean the bumper down and move on to the priming stage. I used filler primer, which is also suitable for plastic, and proceeded to apply 3 coats to get complete coverage. After drying and before sanding, I applied some guide coat, as you can feel that it's very rough and would give a terrible finish if I painted straight over it. This is almost like a black spray paint that will allow me to see the highs and lows of the primer. The idea is you smooth the primer out with sandpaper, and once all the guide coat is gone, you know that your primer is level and smooth. So I sanded it back with 240 grit, and I wasn't too worried about going through the primer as I was painting on plastic and not metal. Once all the guide coat was gone, I went over the bumper one more time with 400 grit, as I found the optimal grit to apply the colour coat over. So I applied 3 coats of colour coat with about 10 minutes in between each one, starting off light and making sure to apply it on a 50% overlap to avoid getting lines in the finish. Also, I really should have been wearing breathing protection, so I don't recommend doing as I did. And once the bottom had dried, I flipped it onto the bottom and took care of the edges. I wasn't striving for a great finish on the bottom, since no one will see it and the visible areas logically took priority. Finally, after about 30 minutes, it was time for the clear coat. I applied about 6 coats, as a clear coat from a spray can is much thinner than from a spray gun, and it was important that it was thick enough to withstand wet sanding later on. I specifically went for an expensive U-Pol clear coat, as these have a good spray pattern and don't orange peel as bad as the cheaper cans. Next day, it was time to reassemble a bumper and grille and take care of some of the existing damage on the A4's wing. So I got to the car and ramps and removed the bumper, and I blurred this bit out because no one really needs to see a shot of my underwear here. I placed the new bumper up against the wing to see how far off the colour was. The problem with spray cans is they're never 100% match, as we see here, even though I haven't even polished the bumper up. I made sure that I got enough paint made up at the same time to blend in the wings as well as paint the bumper. This was important that came from the same batch, as I found the colour could be quite different from one batch to another, so I wanted to be dealing with 2 shades rather than 3. Cumberbatch! First off was to take care of that dent in the wing. I cleaned the area, then sanded the area back with 240 grit before cleaning one last time with alcohol. And then mixed some regular body filler up and applied it to the dent. Once dried, I sanded back with 240 grit until perfectly smooth. I had to apply some more filler as it was a little bit thin in one area, as you can see here. Once the second application was sanded and smoothed, it was on to priming the bare metal that was exposed. I also sanded the surrounding clear coat with 600 grit to make sure that any primer or paint had something to adhere to. Again, I used a little bit of guide coat to see how smooth it was. The other side was easy since it wasn't damaged, so I was able to mask the area off and go straight in with 600 grit. Then it was on to spraying and blending the wing. I decided to mask on the body crease rather than blend to the top of the wing, since the crease provided a natural colour change. As you can see, I got progressively thinner the further I moved away from the bumper. This is to provide a smooth transition from one shade to another. Then I applied a few coats of clear coat and let it cure for 24 hours. Then it was a case of wet sanding the wings and bumper with 1500 grit sandpaper to reduce orange peel. Then I refined it further with 3000 grit. Then I compounded with my DA polisher, and this was the most satisfying step as I could see a real reflection and smooth finish after this step. And then finally I finished off with some polish. So considering this is what the car looks like when I bought it, I was quite pleased with the results. So okay, it was probably more effort than it was worth, and it would have been better giving it to a body shop, but that's not the point. I learned new skills and got one more step closer to perfecting my technique. And it's just satisfying knowing that I was able to do this. I was definitely happy with the final finish. The reflection looks as smooth as the bonnet, and the blending on the wings is smooth enough not to be noticeable. But anyway, thanks for watching, subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, see you soon, take care.